And we're live. It's Fairfield County Live and Local, presented by the Sono Collection. My name is John Kamal from 95.9 The Fox. This is Johnny, this is Luke, and this is Rory. They are lespecial. Guys, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us, John.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Well, I mean, I was telling you off the air that I've been going to shows of yours since like 2012, 2013. You guys have been a band forever. But then when I had the chance to have you guys on this show, I loved it because, all right, so this is a podcast through the station 95.9 The Fox. If you live in Fairfield County, Connecticut, you can go to 95.9 FM. You can go to 959thefox.com to stream it. You guys are perfect for the Fox audience. This is a 90s rock station. You guys have such huge, Tool, Nine Inch Nails, Primus influences. But also so much else. Just to start with, talk about like the beginning of the band, because you guys have been together forever, right? Like 10, 15 years, something like that, since high school.
Yeah, 15 years for the band. Rory and I since before.
Yeah, so when you were forming the sound, what were those early jams and early conversations like?
So when we first started getting together as the three of us as lespecial, Rory, like I said, he and I were playing in another band. We had played in a few other bands. And when we got to high school, Johnny and I were in a band called the Noise Boys. And Johnny actually played drums in it. We played with our friends Nick and Merrick Noise, super talented musicians from Lakeville, right? Salisbury or Lakeville?
Yeah.
And so that was more like a straight ahead, more kind of jam band, reggae, folky kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And Rory got to our high school. Shout out HVRHS. Has been getting some love on Facebook today. Hashtag HVR. I should have given you that hashtag, John. My bad.
Oh, yeah.
HVRHS.
It's not too late.
It's
not too late.
Yeah. Who's a tonic? We're making it trending. But Rory got to school, and I was like, hey, I got this drummer, this homie. He and John knew each other. There we go.
That's right. That's right. On the fly. We're quick with it.
Quick.
Keep going.
I love it. But so we the three of us got together, and we were like listening to more kind of heavier experimental music bands like the Mars Volta, Medeski Martin and Wood, a lot of like Primus and Radiohead.
Yeah.
And so lespecial kind of gave us an avenue to flex that a little bit more. And that was just kind of more our vibe. So our first ever Battle of the Bands that we played in 2005, we were supposed to play as the Noise Boys. And everyone liked the Noise Boys, but then we switched out for lespecial because it's just what we were feeling more. And our fans or whatever friends weren't vibing to it the same. It was a little bit abrasive, I think. But we just like the heavy weird shit, so not much has changed there in 15 years.
Well, and you guys cover such a great spectrum of the heavy weird shit. Like, I mean, you guys, there's elements of metal, there's all kinds of different styles of electronic music. You got drum and bass, industrial, which you don't, I mean, that's such a 90s core like sound that you don't even hear anymore. There's hip hop. So like, I mean, does having so much of a stylistic range help or hurt the writing process early on or now?
That's a good question. I think it helps.
Yeah.
I think we have fun like writing in different, the kind of, I guess the question is, how do you utilize all these styles and influences and make them sound like your own creative voice? And honestly, when you just write things yourself, they end up sounding like yourself. So, when we look to write a song, we'll reference more bands than like a genre. It won't be like, all right, this is going to be a rock song. It's, maybe something like this has maybe a Radiohead vibe. Maybe we'll do like a broken beat rhythm for it, or this is some Primus shit I'm playing on the fretless for this one.
Right.
So I think it helps just having a divergent array of influences that we can kind of reference. You know what I mean? We would never want to like write the same song twice. You know what I mean? So I think it keeps it more exciting for us.
I mean, you guys are in no danger of doing that. And, of course, the reason you're here talking to me is you've got the new album out right now, which is called Ancient Homies, and it's currently streaming everywhere. And this is, like I just said, it's so musically diverse. You guys described it as, what was the exact line? I had it written down too. It feels like the most true representation of lespecial, this album in particular. Why is that? And what is the most true representation of lespecial?
I'll let somebody else answer. My voice is getting hoarse.
Okay. That's why you got the tea.
So I've got my tea.
That's right.
Well, you would hope that like whatever your latest work is going to be like your best work yet. You probably strive for that, like as you make as you come along and you progress in your art. And I think that like one thing that's certainly different about this release for us is that we had so much more time to put it together over these past 9 months. I mean, it had been brewing for a while. Some of these songs have been around for a number of years in different forms and maybe have been road tested to some degree, and others not at all. But having just this incubation period of the last 9 months and kind of the silver lining of the last 9 months for the three of us, we're fortunate enough to be close enough that we can get together safely. And, we're all healthy and everything like that. So, we've been able to actually hunker down and for once not be in the van, like, a ton over the last 9 months, which at first was a little scary. And at second, it was like, okay, well, let's get this album done. So I think with having that kind of attention to detail and the time that we've never been allowed to really focus on the overall, just the whole comprehensive production of the record, I think that's one big reason why it's, I think, our best work to date,
I mean, I love that. There's been such a dark Darwinian thing going on with this whole COVID thing, in terms of just, I mean, relationships of every kind, whether it's band, whether it's personal, kind of breaking down. But the ones who are real, I mean, it's people who really have it together are showing strength right now, and that's kind of what you guys are doing. Talk about, I mean, the just the bond between you guys. You've been together forever. You haven't let COVID stop you from releasing and recording parts at least, right? Because I mean, some of it was recorded beforehand. Talk about what is it that keeps you guys so close and creative with each other after all this time?
It's probably different answers for everybody. To lead it off, I guess.
Yeah.
When it happened, when like COVID broke out, we were on tour. We were in tour in Colorado, and I remember just kind of witnessing the hour by hour breakdown. I think it was like the March 13th show we had of, okay, like talking to our manager who was on the other side of the country that was going to fly out. That was like, I can't do that now, and just kind of waiting and seeing him. We were in Colorado, which has an incredibly receptive music scene, from the fans to the promoters, the musicians, all the way down. And so they were really working with us to make shows happen. So, we had to cancel our Bluebird Theater we were going to play. And, but we found another venue. Our management, shout out Jamflow Management, crushed that by sorting all that shit out in Madison House at the time. So they moved us to this venue in Denver called Lost Lake. That's more like a punk rock kind of 200 capacity room. We sold it out in like 2 hours. Nice. So we knew it was going to get rowdy. And yeah, so I mean, that was like our, we played 2 last shows, and then that was it. And we flew home, and we all flew home sick. And, we all like quarantined for a couple weeks and, took a breather.
Oh, you guys all got it?
Yeah.
Oh,
we were all like sick out there. So we got them antibodies, which we sell for big bucks on the black market these days. But, yeah, we were like in packed clubs, and then flew in like into JFK. So, it was I guess a good and a bad thing. But, so once the dust kind of settled a little bit, and like that initial panic of musicians of like, what the fuck do we do? For me personally, I just like got out my notebook and was like, all right, like, how do we capitalize on this? How do we get ahead right now? Because what's kind of crazy as a musician, for the first time in our lives, it was like the playing field was evened. And it was like, you're always kind of like, looking at everybody else. And as a musician, you're always kind of like, how do I do this better? They did this, I want to do that. And you're kind of like asking yourself those questions. And for the first time ever, we're like, shit, everyone's in the same place. We're not competing for attention or competing for a bill or something like that. So how do we get ahead? And luckily the 3 of us are all very creative, and it's hard for us to sit still and not do anything. So everybody was teaching a lot. John always has been teaching full time. Me and Rory started to do the lessons more. And then just like, all right, let's get together. Let's finish this album. We got to work on some film score projects and all these other projects we got to give attention to that we wouldn't have been able to, like, if we were on tour. So that was kind of our goal. How do we use this time to the best? There's no point in throwing up your hands and giving up. How do you get ahead? How do you stay ahead in this crazy climate? And I'm super proud of us. The 3 of us, our management, our booking agency, we have a big team behind us. And it took everybody being motivated about it and not just kind of giving up. And not to say that other musicians have done that. A lot of bands can't get together physically. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think every band to an extent has asked how they do it, but yeah, man, I mean, it was that was the goal. And so, I'm proud. I'm not, we can always do more and do better, but I'm proud of being able to get this album done for sure.
Well, I mean, this album is really awesome. And, you know, I mean, for people who are just tuning in, I'm talking a lespecial. They got the new album, Ancient Homies. It's out right now. It's streaming everywhere. You've got to check this album out because you guys are firing on all cylinders on this. I mean, the different themes that run throughout this album are amazing. The number 3 is a major theme of the album. It's your third album. You guys are a 3-piece band. Those are the obvious ones, but it goes deeper than that. I mean, how else is 3 present in this album?
So there's the 3 homie tracks, homie numero uno, dos, and tres, which sort of divide the album into 3 phases. They're tracks 3, 6, and 9. And it's interesting to note those were improvised in the studio. We were just jamming. And if there's any question about us being a jam band, we were jamming.
right.
And
I've heard that question floated in the last week.
In case anyone was wondering. So we got the chance to improvise and look back at these long jams later and sort of chop out parts we liked, and those became the 3 homie tracks. And then of course you get to overdub things over those and make them sound more arranged. So that was a new style of writing, a new approach for us that's really exciting, and that's sort of going to continue to be a method for us. What other themes of 3 were there, guys?
Well, actually, you know what? Because you brought something interesting up, which was the improvised aspect of those 3 homie the homie numero uno, dos, and tres. We've had a couple of improv bands on here. In fact, I brought up this comment from Isaac Young because he plays in a band called PX3 and No Mind. But PX3 is an all improv band. He's the man. He's the man. Isaac? And we love him at Live and Local. Isaac described, what's the quote? I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it. Isaac described improvisation as people who share a common language but a different dialect. How do you guys approach improvisation?
Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, I think that's super applicable to what we did with these homie improv tracks, whereas we tried to create a musical vocabulary or a language, or in this case, a modality or a scale, and stick to those in our improv. You hear this modality all over the album. We call it the Snell scale. It's on Snell's Fleet. A good example is Egg Time. It's 3 notes. That whole song is... It's chromatic. So you've got a half step above the root and a half step below the root. And that's just kind of how that scale began. But it's kind of fun to be able to, you have to narrow your toolbox sometimes. And so it's always like the jam band thing to me has really just it's an inside joke. It's like, if you think we take genres seriously, like just listen to our album. Like we don't. It's just another term, but it's like we love improvising. I mean, we all study jazz. Like we all becoming good at improvising is how you grow your instrument. Of course, we like doing that.
Yeah.
But for us, there's certain bands that we prefer improvising with. A band for us that was really instrumental in our development was Medeski, Martin and Wood, and I mean that's a band that could open for Fish, or they could open for any pick a jazz artist. And it's improvising. It's a musical language. They're listening. They're playing. To me, the downside of a jam band can be when improvising turns into guitar soloing. And it's just like the keyboardist and the bassist are 4 chords here. We go, and the guitarist is feeling it and no one else is. And I've seen that a lot. And that's just that's the dark side. And that's, there's a good and a bad side to being a jam band. That's not us.
I've certainly never done that. I don't know what you're talking about. That's crazy.
I was watching something recently too. I forget who it was. It was a jazz musician saying, I don't like to call myself an improviser. I like to say that I compose in the moment. So when you're good enough at improvising, you're just writing on the spot, which I thought was a cool way to put it.
Yeah, it almost sounds like you're playing something that was written. It was pre-composed. And, commenting on the improvising thing, I think it all depends on the players, and what the instrumentation is and how many people you have involved. For the 3 of us, we have so much common ground, as we stated before, that, as Luke said, if you take, a simple direction or even a description of something we're trying to do, how about some John Carpenter meets Tool meets Depeche Mode, whatever. We don't, that's just a random example, but we can go there.
Fire jam though.
I would love to hear that. That's so cool.
We can go there quickly because we have all that common ground. Whereas a jam between 4 people who have never met each other before could be beautiful or it could be a train wreck. It all depends,
Yeah.
So I think we're blessed in that sense to have all that common ground.
That common language, exactly. That's
Yeah.
why I like the way Isaac put it. I mean, music is a language, but there's also languages within that language.
Right.
So to get back to Ancient Homies, it was cool to improvise in one kind of modality and all the different ideas we could kind of come up with by using like that set of tools. So that was kind of the concept behind those tracks.
Yeah. In terms of writing process, like how do you guys approach a new song, or does it come out of a jam? Because it's so, like, you've got Tunberry, which is probably my favorite song in the album. That's like 100% like what I love to hear when I go to a show. But then there's a song like The Vessel, which is it kind of like stylistically very different. If they both sound like you, but do you guys set out to write, a hardcore balls to the wall song like Tunberry, or like, something with a little bit more of a groove like The Vessel, or does it just happen?
I think it's totally different. We don't really have like a formula for writing songs that we do over and over. Everyone brings in ideas, everyone comes up with ideas, and then everyone else adds their flavor to it. I mean, another thing with the trio aspect is that to us in this band, there's no front man, there's no center of attention. Everyone shares that spotlight, and everyone is equally important. If you take out one element, it's a completely changed dynamic. So something like Tonberry that I started writing in like my basement was like balls to the walls riff. Like I wanted to write a banger, and but then I brought it in, and so it went all these different places. And one of my favorite parts of the song was this halftime breakdown that Johnny came up with when we were playing it, where it just kind of where we build out of that 4 to the floor jam, and then it goes right to that snare hit, crack.
Yep.
And that's just kind of like this minimal breakdown. We love the idea of a rhythmic figure or a phrase or something repeating, but you change, and that stays the same, but you change the rhythms under it.
It's very Tool.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Tool, like a lot of those like heavy bands. Gojira was an inspiration for that, but it's kind of like, you can, if we're playing 2 notes, but it keeps repeating. So it's almost like it falls out of time. And depending on how Rory plays under it, it gives it a different feel. So, and you can hear it in the end of Tonberry. We're literally just repeating that. And Rory goes back and forth between double time to half time to like double time on the toms. So that's always been interesting to us. Something like King Crimson does that so well too. Like playing a song in 7/4 or 7/8 and then putting a halftime drum beat under it now changes the phrasing. So that's kind of what happened there. But every song's different. I mean, The Vessel started with Johnny just started playing that synth hook when we were like sound checking at a Portland House of Music. And we kind of started talking like, okay, now let's give that maybe some kind of 9 Inch Nails, 4 to the floor, like whatever BPM it's at, 86 or something. So it depends what you're feeling, and it depends on your reaction to certain things and where the other guys take an idea.
Yeah. Actually, one of my other favorite songs is Boundary Dissolution. I mean, it's musically, it's so different. I know I've been talking a lot about how all the songs are different. This one I feel like is probably the biggest departure from the rest of the album musically, but lyrically, the theme, these themes of traveling to different planes and letting down, letting down Boundary Dissolution. It plays into the rest of the album so perfectly. Like, Johnny, could you explain the lyric writing process for that song?
So yeah, I guess that one's sort of referring to what Terrence McKenna calls boundary dissolution, where I know this is a family-friendly radio station, but he's talking about...
I mean, we're online, dude. It's okay.
Okay, he's talking about... Usually he's talking about the use of psychedelics and how they can sort of dissolve your ego, your identifiers, your labels, and sort of make you meld into a greater something,
like an ego death kind of thing.
Exactly. Like we're huge Flying Lotus fans. He had a whole album called You're Dead, which was definitely themed around that, just kind of stripping it all away and getting to the source. So shout out Terrence McKenna.
Yo, you know what I saw last night that you would like, John?
Yeah, what's that?
It was both you Johns would like this. It was on Brian Gumbel, Real Sports with Brian Gumbel on HBO, and it was
Brian Gumbel.
It was really cool show, but it was about these MMA fighters that went and did this like mushroom tea ceremony, and it was guys that have had brain damage from fighting their whole lives.
Wow.
And so they all like sat in. It was like led by a shaman drumming, and they filmed the whole thing. And so there's this one guy that's huge that has like a speech impediment due to being hit in the head so many times. And he took what they called a hero dose, which was like, they're like a lot more than is recommended for a for recreational use, and it was pretty intense to watch. Like they're like at this point he had a very vivid hallucination. He's whoa, did I just die? Am I here? Did I die? And like
God.
it's really intense. But then afterwards, they talked to him, and like 6 months later, and he had done it a couple more times or something like that, or maybe he had only
His
done it
speech
one.
impediment was gone.
It wasn't like I don't know if they commented on that, maybe, but they just said that it had helped with all of these different issues that he was dealing with. So obviously that's a whole different conversation, so the benefits to psychedelics, but it is cool seeing that being addressed in the medicinal world and on HBO.
And in the political world, I mean, it was just legalized in a lot of places.
Right.
Neurogenesis is a thing they talk about. Paul Stamets is a big mycologist guy. He had a stutter when he was a kid, which is funny that you just brought that up. He had a really bad stutter, and he said he had a really powerful mushroom trip during a lightning storm on top of a mountain, and his stutter went away.
Whoa.
So he talks about neurogenesis and the idea that you can actually build new pathways in your brain and generate or heal pathways in your brain with the use of psilocybin. Pretty crazy stuff. I think it comes from outer space, like on a comet or something. I think it's alien life. Mushroom spores, they can survive in freezing cold vacuums. So it seems to me like it's a consciousness from another world. So that's sort of some of the ancient homie themes that are tucked away in there.
That's crazy, bro. Have you ever done DMT?
Yes.
No, sorry. I was just doing my Joe Rogan impression because we were getting into that territory. That was purely a joke.
That's the Joe Rogan.
No,
that's crazy. Have you done DMT?
No, but that's awesome because like that. I mean, the song is that's that entire idea. Like Luke, what you were talking about is all over the song Boundary Dissolution. And it's so was there, and not to get into it too deeply, was there a political bend to it though, Johnny? Because I just from listening to the lyrics, I was like, there's a couple of things that could be being talked about. A yes or no is fine if you don't want to get into it.
There wasn't intended, but that's the cool thing about art and lyrics. I mean, you can interpret it in so many ways.
Right. And we talked a little bit about quarantine before, and it is, I mean, it's old news, but what's it like out there playing? Actually, what I really want to ask you about was what was doing a drive-in show like? How was that? Like, how was that experience? Because I talked to, you guys know Doughy Joey, right? Luke, I know you do.
Joseph, my
Joseph
boy.
Joseph himself. He said
Hell
that these things are here to stay. He said that they're awesome, even after the pandemic. What did you guys think?
Yeah, we had a really cool experience. We did too. We did like a smaller private one in Lake George that was kind of just like a model test thing. It was we weren't allowed to promote it or anything. I'm still sorry to our fans that weren't able to come. It wasn't our decision, but we kind of wanted to just like test it and not, I think every band was kind of hesitant when this first started about, obviously you want to be safe and you don't want to be the reason that people are getting together and not being safe or anything like that.
Right.
So we were fortunate to be able to have a test run, and it was run really well and we felt comfortable with it. And then the question became like, we saw everyone doing it, and we saw some bands where it seemed really cool and some where it's kind of like jamming in a parking lot. And so we were like, so how do we make this our own thing? And what was exciting for us was to do this live movie score. I'm still amazed that not more bands didn't like do that.
Yeah.
So we had been talking about doing a live movie score for years at one of our lespecial events. So the drive-in formula becoming successful was a clear opportunity to do that. And so doing that was awesome. We had so much fun working on the music. We did this 1920s German silent horror film called The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Our LD Vin Puglisi did this incredible lighting job. And I remember very vividly just being on that stage, like surrounded by instruments. We each had a lot more instruments, bigger setups, like giant screen behind me, all these lights that were, in the kind of the same scheme, the same scope as the visuals. I just felt like I was in this like futuristic movie set. And it was one of the coolest feelings on stage I've ever had.
That's such a cool
I agree.
idea.
It was definitely one of my favorite shows we've ever played, to really give the music that credence of the visual and the video content and the lighting to go with everything in sync, in rhythm. I mean, that's the goal, to always do a show with that production level.
How do you guys do that? How do you sync up and actually like do like score a movie live?
Vin is a fucking mad scientist.
Yeah, he'd have to be.
Yeah, it was. We're really fortunate to be able to work with Vin on that. I don't know if we would have been able to pull it off otherwise. I mean, he had it going. Yes, like 3 different LED screens playing this movie, and we also had what are called confidence monitors, where we each had a small monitor down at our pedal board and our monitors that we could see the film. So we didn't have to turn around. Rory obviously is in front of that screen. But so we got to kind of see the visuals. And for me, I mean, I'm like looking at all of them. I'm watching mine. I'd look over at John's. I'd turn around and look at the LED screen. Yeah, it's incredible when you think about it that it was able to get pulled off without a hitch. Very easily could have something could have gone wrong, and it didn't. So I think it speaks to him. And then also just shout out to the Falmouth Drive-In for letting us do that idea and bringing that in there. Oh yeah, I think Rory just dropped a video in the chat.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if that's is that a private chat between us, or can people see that?
That is the private chat. Maybe I just put it in the comments then, right?
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
On
let me see if
Facebook.
I can.
Yeah, people can check that out. If anyone hasn't seen that, it's on our YouTube channel, as well as our Facebook. You can just scroll down. We have the entire performance of us playing this, but what we've also, our friend Jules Jensen has put together for us, who we also work with and worked with on this project, was he has adapted our score to the actual 1920 version of the movie. So we've been busy with other shit where we haven't like released that yet.
Yeah.
But we're thinking maybe a little Christmas drop, a little spooky Christmas movie for everybody out
Really?
there. Yeah, so that'll be a whole new
Really?
way to experience it.
Oh, that is so cool, man. That is so cool.
Yeah,
So
I haven't even seen it yet. I'm excited to see that.
So it's the movie, but with your score attached to it.
Right.
Correct.
Synced up.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, that was different way of working for us, and it opened a lot of doors, and it was really fun, breath of fresh air to try to serve what's on the screen and make a bed of sound that fits with it and enhances it. It was really a cool learning experience.
It sounds like
definitely.
it, man. All right. Well, before we get out of here, I did ask online for people to submit some questions. I got a couple of fan questions. So let's see. At Barbieri.cam, has the transition from album to album been as smooth as song to song, personally and musically? I don't know about song to song, but yeah, I mean, like, what has the transition been like from album to album?
It's a good question. I think it's like less conscious, where we're not kind of like, okay, this album's done. Now we start this next one. It's kind of just always organic and always going and changing. Yeah, I think that there are certain things that lend themselves to this album feeling more cohesive and just better for us.
Yeah.
The other 2 albums, Omni Squid and Sheen, were like in a studio where we went into one studio, tracked it, lived inside these songs, went home, came back a few different sessions. Whereas Ancient Homies was put together over a couple of years and recorded in different studios and listening to the music, driving around in our cars. And that extra time and kind of introspection, I think, helped and made it better. But yeah, it's interesting. I guess the transition is just kind of natural. I mean, we're also, we're 3 years older each time we put out an album. So, I mean, that I think everything in your life influences that transition. I don't know how conscious it is really,
Has it been exactly 3 years in between each album?
I think so, but hasn't been conscious. That's the number. That's just Tripp's life. Like, because Omni Squid was 2015, Sheen was 2017 or 2018.
2017, I think. Yeah.
Okay, and so then Ancient Homies. So there's 3 years between Sheen and Ancient Homies, and maybe 2 between Omni Squid and Sheen.
Right. Well, you're building, so
Right. It's gonna be 4 years before the next one.
Right.
Just kidding.
Right.
We're
Hopefully
already
not.
done.
Hopefully not. Are you really?
No, I mean
We started it.
We started. We have music written. We've been recording a lot. So we're coming up with ideas for how we want to continue to be creative and put out music. But yeah, I mean, shit, we're gonna keep putting music out.
Right on.
Yeah, I'd say we have three or four songs like in the works in various stages that could be like good pieces on an album, strong songs on an album. So yeah, we're chipping away at it at the next one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of releasing stuff, at Vinyl Syndrome asks, unsurprisingly asks, Sheen on vinyl, that a possibility?
Yeah, it is a possibility. Ancient Homies was our first venture into vinyl, and we're almost sold out, which is something we did not anticipate. I think that in the past we've been kind of shied away from vinyl because it's a big cost up front, and you're not sure the returns. But this was working with Rope-a-Dope Records was awesome. They were big advocates of doing vinyl we were super into it. We like physical media. Our fans like physical media. To throw back the term jam band, I think people in the jam community like physical media, which is awesome. They like pins, T-shirts, CDs.
Yeah.
So the vinyls have sold more. We've sold more vinyl than CDs and digital copies. But you order the vinyl, you get the digital too. So
Nice.
shout out everyone that's ordered a vinyl. It's been awesome. You helped us cover the expense. Thank you.
Thank you.
the last question is such a theme of not only tonight but just your last week. And Nick asks, are you a jam band? You guys must be so sick of hearing that question. Let me change the question. How about did you set out to be a jam band?
Toss it to Rory.
No, I don't say we set out to be a jam band. We set out to be a Slipknot cover band at first.
True.
And then
That's
it was
so badass.
Then it was Nirvana cover band and many cover bands. No, the improvising thing didn't come along until a little later for me personally. Probably until I went to my first Medeski, Martin and Wood show, and I was like, "What is that? What are they doing up there?"
Right.
So
Yeah, I think it's never like conscious, and the jam band label is just funny too because it's like we love music festivals, and jam band fans are very eclectic taste and have very open minds. And that we've always loved that. It's kind of like, I guess, with our identity in the past, it's been like, well, who can we tour with? Like, if we tour with a metal band, it's not going to be their vibe. But if we tour with like a straight ahead indie band, you know what I mean? We've always kind of been on like the periphery of all these different genres. And but jam band, the jam audience, we kind of found our first home with. I think they were just into hearing it and open minded. You know what I mean? Because they're all on psychedelics.
Right, which makes sense. By the way, my mic just died, so I'm just gonna talk to you guys old school like this. We only got a couple minutes left anyway. Right. Well, I mean, and you guys, peaks and valleys, which we come to associate with jam music, is absolutely something that we hear from you guys, whether it's within an individual song or whether it's just within your set list. So I mean, I can see there's a lot of cross pollination going on there. But that's okay. Yeah. We can stop talking about that. You guys have probably been hearing that question for 10 years.
I mean, it's still like funny to me. That's I guess the joke is there's not an answer, but it's a conversation. And shit, man, we're down to have conversations.
Yeah, dude. All right, question for me. And this is because I got all kinds of crap over the post that I was putting up for you guys. Why the lowercase L? Because I insisted to my boss and my wife and everybody, it's a lowercase L. That's how they do it. Why the lowercase L?
I mean, look at Johnny's sweatshirt.
That's what I'm saying. It's right there.
It fucking looks better.
I think it just looks cool to have the two on either side, like bracketing the Especia.
Yeah.
It's symmetrical, man.
It is. See, so there you go. So for those of you who thought that I was messing up my grammar.
Well, it's funny, John, you bring it up because, we made a post about it too. Like, we've been trying to get Spotify to change it for years, and it finally went through.
Is it uppercase on Spotify?
It's lowercase now, baby.
Oh, that's right.
It took us a few years. But it's also like, it's to us, it's a sound. It's not a word. It never was. We like the phonetic quality of it. What does it sound like? And to us, it's like, why, fuck genre norms, confines, fuck grammar, punctuation. Just do what looks good, what sounds good, and go by that. And usually you'll find something that works.
Well, and that's it. I think Luke, you've arrived at the theme. Just do you. And you guys have absolutely done that. This album is amazing. And for people who are watching, we're going to be playing this album, tracks from this album at least, on 95.9 The Fox this Sunday. We're going to be posting up some clips of this podcast to go along with it. If you want to hear the entire thing and you're just catching the end, you can find it on 959thefox.com or iTunes, Spotify, all of that stuff. Most importantly, though, Ancient Homies, listen to this album. This album is awesome. I have been listening to it all week. I'm going to continue listening to it. Hashtag Ancient Homies, lespecial. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us, John. It was a blast.
This has been great, man.
Thanks, John. It's awesome, man. Shout out to you guys for repping some local Connecticut music and everyone out there. That's dope. We really appreciate it.
Always, man. And please, listen, I always say at the end of these things, thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting live and local music in Connecticut. please continue supporting live and local music in Connecticut. Save our stages. There's, my beloved acoustic in Bridgeport is looking like it's in trouble. A lot of other places across this. Oh, dude, it's making me cry. A lot of other spots across Connecticut, New England, wherever you're watching, man. Buy some merch, give to their Venmo. Doesn't matter what the place is. I'm not telling you to give to a specific place. I'm telling you to give to all of the places, all the venues, please. But also while you're doing that, buy Ancient Homies, because it's just your life will be better. Guys, thank you so much again. Stick around after I take us off live. But for people watching at home, listen to 95.9 The Fox this Sunday. If you don't live in Fairfield County, Connecticut, you can go to 959thefox.com. You can stream it there. Lespecial. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, y'all.